My name is Mia. That day was the first time I ever drove back to my hometown by myself. For years, I had always taken the bus from the city where I studied, lulled to sleep by the rhythm of the road and the comfort of knowing someone else was behind the wheel. But something about this particular weekend felt different. I had just bought a used car, a faded red sedan with a dull sheen and a faint scratch along the passenger side door. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The dealer had assured me it was in good condition, that it could handle long distances with no trouble. I didn't know much about cars, and truthfully, I wasn't confident in my ability to drive that far. Still, the idea of taking the familiar roads home, the same ones I had traveled so many times before as a passenger, gave me a sense of comfort. I told myself it would be fine, that nothing would go wrong. The first half of the drive went surprisingly smoothly. The roads were steady, traffic was light, and the weather was calm. Soft clouds drifted across a pale afternoon sky. I kept the windows slightly down, letting the warm breeze carry in the scent of dry grass and old asphalt. Familiar landmarks passed by in quiet procession. The narrow bridge with chipped guardrails, the abandoned gas station covered in ivy, the gentle curves of hills that seemed unchanged since childhood. My nerves began to settle as the rhythm of the engine soothed me. For a while, I even felt proud, like I had finally crossed some invisible threshold into adulthood. The car hummed steadily beneath me, old but loyal, as if it understood how much this trip meant. It wasn't until I stopped for gas that the mood began to shift. I had reached the last small town before the long stretch of forest road that would take me to the village. The gas station was almost deserted, just a lone building surrounded by dry fields and silence. I pulled up beside one of the pumps and noticed a black Jeep parked near the edge of the lot, engine off, no one inside. Its presence felt out of place, like it had been sitting there too long. I assumed the driver was inside the convenience store or using the restroom, and I tried not to think much of it. I filled the tank, paid in cash, and got back into the car. As I pulled away, the Jeep remained still in my rearview mirror, motionless beneath the high, colorless sky. The road after that felt eerily quiet, as if I had passed through an invisible threshold. I left the small town behind and entered the stretch of countryside that always marked the final leg of the trip. Miles of narrow, winding road flanked by dense forest on both sides. The trees were tall and heavy with leaves, their tangled branches forming a canopy that filtered the sunlight into broken shafts of gold. The air grew still. I hadn't seen another vehicle since leaving the gas station, and with no phone signal and no radio reception, there was only the sound of my tires rolling over the cracked pavement. Still, it felt familiar. I remembered riding this road as a child, my head against the car window, watching the same trees pass like green walls, counting the curves in the road until I fell asleep. It brought a strange kind of peace. I glanced at the dashboard clock. If I kept a steady pace, I'd be home by dinner, maybe even before the sun dipped behind the hills. Somewhere along that quiet stretch, the car began to lose power. It started subtly, just a slight delay when I pressed the accelerator, as if the engine was hesitating. Then the hum of the motor weakened, and the steering felt heavy in my hands. I pressed the gas pedal again, harder this time, but the car didn't respond. It rolled forward sluggishly for a few more feet before finally coasting to a stop on the side of the road. I sat there for a moment, listening to the silence pressing in from the woods around me. I tried turning the key again. Nothing. No click, no turnover, just a hollow stillness. There was no signal on my phone, no houses nearby, and no passing cars. For the first time during the trip, I felt a tremor of helplessness. I stepped out of the car, hoping that maybe some fresh air or a glance under the hood might help me think. The forest was completely still, unnaturally so. No wind, no birds, not even the distant buzz of insects. I leaned against the car, arms crossed, staring down the empty road in both directions. I felt exposed, like I was being watched by something hidden just beyond the tree line. Minutes passed. Then in the distance, I saw a vehicle approaching. Large, dark, familiar. As it drew closer, my heart gave a nervous jolt. It was the black Jeep I had seen at the gas station, the same one parked in silence earlier, now rumbling toward me on the empty road. Without thinking, I stepped into the lane and raised my arm. I needed help. I told myself it was just a coincidence. The Jeep slowed and pulled over beside my stalled car. The driver stepped out. A man in his late 30s, maybe early 40s, dressed in a dark flannel shirt and jeans, with short hair and a face that gave nothing away. He asked if I needed help, and I nodded, trying to sound calmer than I felt. He walked around the front of my car and asked me to pop the hood. I did as he said, watching as he leaned in, tapping wires and checking the battery. After a few minutes, he stood up and said it was likely the battery, weak or corroded. He offered to jumpstart the car. I hesitated for a second, then gave a small nod. He went back to his Jeep, pulled out cables and connected the batteries. Moments later, my engine coughed, sputtered, then came back to life, along with the radio, which resumed right where it had left off. A voice crackled through the speakers, low and serious, the tone of a news broadcast. I didn't catch the beginning, but the words became clearer as the background static faded. The anchor was reporting on a recent prison escape, warning residents in nearby towns to stay alert. A convicted serial killer was on the move, last seen heading toward the outer villages. Then came the description. A man in his late 30s, medium build, short hair, last seen driving a black Jeep. I froze. The timing, the vehicle, the age, it matched too closely. My eyes shifted toward the man, who was already looking at me. His expression had changed, less casual, more alert, as if he realized what I had just heard. A heavy silence stretched between us. He opened his mouth as if to say something, maybe to explain, but I didn't wait. Panic surged through me, and I turned and ran. I sprinted down the empty road, my shoes slamming against the cracked pavement, heart pounding so hard it drowned out every sound around me. The trees on either side blurred as I ran, branches clawing at the edges of my vision. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could hear the rapid thuds of his boots behind me, the scrape of gravel as he picked up speed. The afternoon light was starting to dim, shadows stretching long across the road. I veered off toward a narrow dirt path I remembered from childhood, a shortcut that twisted through the trees toward a cluster of old houses. My breath burned in my chest, but I didn't stop. Every instinct screamed that I couldn't let him catch up. The path was uneven, roots breaking through the dirt, branches whipping at my arms and face as I pushed through. Behind me, I could still hear him, closer now, crashing through the underbrush with heavy, determined steps. I stumbled once, nearly fell, but caught myself on a low branch and kept moving. My legs were starting to fail, lungs searing with each breath, but fear kept me going. I caught glimpses of rooftops ahead, the edge of a small village, old, quiet, familiar. I screamed for help, though my voice came out raw and broken. As I burst out of the trees and onto a gravel road, I dared to glance over my shoulder. He was still there, just a few paces behind, eyes locked on mine. I ran into the village without stopping, past crumbling fences and shuttered windows, toward a small shop with its door slightly ajar. An old man behind the counter looked up in shock as I stumbled inside, gasping for air, begging him to call the police. I turned back toward the road, expecting to see the man in the Jeep charging after me, but he was gone. The road behind me was empty, silent. No footsteps, no sign of movement, just the forest standing still at the edge of the village, as if nothing had happened. I didn't know if he had given up or simply melted back into the trees, waiting. All I knew was that I was finally out of breath, and I was still alive.